episode 111, number 111 of the City Brew Tours podcast, where we explore the best beer scenes around the country. My name is Brian. I'm your host. Welcome back for another wonderful episode, and join me in welcoming back our co-host for these Brooklyn episodes, Ethan, Angelica. Ethan, how's it going?
Oh, it's going so good. 111. It feels like corduroy in here. Cuddly, like stripes. I feel good about it. I feel warm and cuddly, just like I'm wearing corduroy, except it's like 92 degrees here, so corduroy would be a bad choice on a day like today.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say corduroy is always a bad choice. One of my least favorite patterns of pants, although I certainly wore it a lot when I was in Catholic school. But we don't need to go further into that.
That feels like a definite style choice for the environment. 100%.
Yeah, just blending into my environment there.
Yep.
Ethan, how was your week been? How are you doing?
I am well. I am enjoying a nice toasty summer and also the rains of Brooklyn, which is always good. I did a little exploration and deep investigation, as we Brewvengers are wont to do, in the suburbs of DC in the last week, which was exciting.
Good beer.
Good beer, very good beer, yes, across the board. But I'm glad to be back in Brooklyn between my two bridges and my two breweries, and having some beers.
Wait, you went to the suburbs of DC. Our the first guest we had last week, our good friend Isaac, friend of the pod. Did you talk to him at all? He lives in the suburbs of DC.
I know. I was in and out in 24 hours. And so it was I was like, okay, so I gotta strategize. I found most of my local beers at the local Giant. But I was intended to drink local while I was there. And I feel like that is an important thing to do when you're in those towns. So, well,
I still like to think, despite the fact that you were only there for 24 hours, you had a little map like Kevin McAllister from Home Alone, planning out, I'm going to go here and then here.
Obviously. I mean, that's clearly what I did. And we're just going to stick with that forever and ever.
Let's do it. That's my favorite part of that movie. It's like when he draws that map. It's like this 10-year-old dude took the time to draw this. He had the patience to draw this out. Good for him.
This kid knows what's up.
Future project manager.
Yeah.
Right there, Kevin McAllister.
It's going places. I like it.
Yes. And we are joined by a special guest this week, a fellow CBT brethren, long time, I'll just say it, friend of the pod, long-time listener, friend of the pod, friend of the a beer venger himself.
A beer venger himself, fully indoctrinated.
Yeah, fully indoctrinated. He's also the lead beer guide for City Brew Tours NYC. He's our good friend, Jonathan Mayer. How's it going, John?
It's going good. I'm just happy to be here as a longtime listener, first time caller. Just like to be here and share some beers with you guys.
Proper form there. Proper form. Love it. Yeah, it's very hot. It's very hot where I am. I wish I had turned on the AC, but I'm always worried that it will make noise in the background of this show. And one thing we're known for here at the City Brew Tours podcast is technical integrity.
Oh yes, 100%. That's this highest level. It's hot, and when I get hot, I usually want a beer, and one of the beers we got tonight is a beer that will cool you down on a hot day. I don't know which one we're starting with because that's Brian's call, but I'm just saying at least one of these is an excellent, I'm hot, let's have a beer.
Well, we will get into that in a second, but let's do the proper introductions. We are back with another Brooklyn brewery. Today, we are featuring more beers from our friends at Three's Brewing. They are a Gowanus neighborhood located brewery that was opened in 2014. Have been going strong ever since then. We are featuring their Vliet. I really hope I said that right. Vliet, Vliet. Vliet.
From everything that I've been told, it's Vliet.
Yes, I've also heard them say Vliet. It's very
Vliet.
Dutch. Very Dutch.
Vliet. Yeah, that
I've learned if you are not 100%, say very quick with a mumble, and you can't fail.
Nobody will notice. Yeah.
This is
Wait.
why he's an expert tour guide. I'm just saying, these are all the tricks.
Wonderful, wonderful. So yes, we are featuring Three's Vliet German style Pilsner. This beautiful can you could see right here if you're watching at home, or if you're listening, that you can hear banging on the mic. We are also featuring their Logical Conclusion New England style IPA, hazy IPA, whatever you would like to call it. Some people say one thing, some people say other things, and we won't get into that tonight. But this is a wonderful Citra Mosaic Simcoe. It's actually an argument I've been having in my personal life, joking with a friend that works at a local brewery here in Pittsburgh. We go back and forth with each other about hazy IPA versus New England IPA. And I think she's probably just breaking my balls at a certain point. Actually, I know she definitely is. But yes, wonderful Citra Simcoe Mosaic New England style IPA. And we're going to be talking to our friend Jonathan here, learning more about the wonderful city of New York, the wonderful borough of Brooklyn, and talking about these awesome threes beers. I always forget that S on the end.
Yes.
We are drinking 2 beers.
Two beers from
Threes.
Yeah.
Oh, that works. That works because I'm holding up 2 threes. Listeners at home, I'm holding up a 3 with each hand. We're drinking 2 beers from Threes.
It's a visual joke.
2 threes.
It's a visual joke.
2 threes. That's why you gotta subscribe to the YouTube page.
That's true.
But yeah, before we get into these beers, we got to get started with our discussion with our friend Jonathan here. So Jonathan, let's do some quick sip questions for you. I don't know if we've ever really done this with one of our City Brew Tours friends.
No, but I mean, Jonathan's a good one to do it with. Jonathan is one of my go-tos whenever I need to find a place to have a drink in Brooklyn. So let's do it.
Yes. Okay. Jonathan, favorite beer of all time?
Oh, I can't say of all time, but I'm going to say for the past year and a half, Rockaway Brewing ESB.
Oh,
good choice.
Yeah,
about almost 2 years now.
Very good choice. I will say minor lost points because that is, technically a Queens-based brewery, but we will allow it. At least it's within
well, yeah, it is, but whatever.
But it's an ESB, so extra points for English pub beer. Favorite spot in Brooklyn that's not a brewery?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I'm gonna go with Beer Witch over in the Atlantic, basically the Atlantic Barclays area, right there. Bergen Street, bottle shop, tap room. If you want the widest variety of beer, that's the place to go.
Nice.
Yeah.
We talk so much about Brooklyn and New York City, but what's your favorite place you've ever traveled?
Tie between Mexico and China.
Ooh.
We should
Wow.
clarify that Jonathan's beer vendor name is the Globe Hopper.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So that's a loaded question right there.
Yeah, well traveled, huh?
Yeah. But favorite place to drink internationally is the Caribbean.
Oh, really? Hot
yes.
take.
Yeah.
Why the Caribbean?
Yeah.
So specifically, Leatherback Brewing has a saison that is basil and sorrel, and it is fantastic.
Ooh.
And they have a great lager and a great pale ale. They nail it.
Well, I'm your typical suburban middle class white guy. I'm definitely not middle class right now. Lower class white guy. The only drinking I've done in the Caribbean has always been accompanied by the words all inclusive. And I really liked that about drinking in the Caribbean.
It's a useful element.
Yeah, if you haven't stayed at an all inclusive resort, maybe try it out. It's really cool.
I've taken advantage of that in Mexico. Trust me. It's what you do.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to one in Mexico next year. I'm going to pick your brain. Back to Brooklyn. What's the best thing about Brooklyn, in your opinion?
So I know this has been said on here multiple times, but I can't not say the diversity of it. Not just diversity of cuisines and beer, but also every neighborhood is different. So you go from Gowanus to Borum Hill to Brooklyn Heights to Carroll Gardens to Cobble Hill, it's all different. It's like some are quiet, some are loud. Just like you want it all, Brooklyn's the place to have it.
You can get what you want out of Brooklyn very easily, it seems like.
Oh yeah, very easy.
Killer. And finally, Jonathan, well-traveled, the Globe Hopper.
Yes.
Have you ever seen Bigfoot?
Bigfoot the individual or Sasquatch species?
I guess we should amend our question. Have you ever seen a Sasquatch?
Oh no, the answer is no to both. I just really had to throw that in there.
Oh, getting my balls broken during my day job and getting my balls broken during the night
When
job.
you bring up cryptids, you got to be specific.
It's
It just
true.
is. It is what it is.
It's very true. These are the important things that people need to know. So so now we are a history, personal finance, and cryptids and beer podcast.
Yes.
This is a multi-hyphenate situation here, y'all. You're tuning in for the goods, and we're trying to deliver as hard as we can.
We're trying. Oh boy. Let's, as you can tell by the sound of that cracking beer, Ethan, take it away.
Oh my God. Are we having a beer? Are you saying that we're going to be opening up the Vliet? The Vliet, I think, is how we're going to just say it as quickly as we can.
Vliet.
It's beautiful. It's so pretty. It's got the water. So 3 says this very like simplistic hand design that I love about it. But the Vliet, of course, is like got this river feel, because to continue our history bona fides, Vliet, or however it's pronounced, means small river in Dutch and is a reference to the Gowanus, which is a small, slightly smelly river just over to the side of, it's a canal. It's not really a river, right, Jonathan? It's what I don't know.
It's a canal. It is officially named the Gowanus Canal.
There we go. So it is a canal, but it would probably, the Dutch might have referred to it as a Vliet. And so thus we have a beer.
Thus we have Vliet.
Yes.
I am rocking my one of my favorite glasses tonight that was made by a company called Drunken Astronaut.
Ooh.
That eventually evolved, changed their name, and became Permanent Hangover, which I think people might be a little bit more familiar with. Yes.
Okay.
Shout out to your boy Glassy. This beer is just wonderful. Let's cheers, boys.
Cheers. Oh.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a Pilsner as one wants a Pilsner with a nice forward hop note for me.
Yeah, coming from the Zaz and Spalter Select hops that are chosen for this 5.1% ABV German style Pilsner, single malt beer, traditional German style, just using German Pilsner malt. I'm guessing they're doing some step mashing, possibly decoction, to really garner a wonderful malt backbone for this beer that then kind of allows the hops to showcase and jump out of this beer.
Definitely a cool you down beer on a hot day. Goes through real fast. And I don't know, Jonathan, I feel like this is one of the beers, like when I think of 3s or when I look for 3s out in the world beyond the brewery, like this is one of the ones that they kind of like rest on.
Yeah, this is definitely one of their core. So this one, logical conclusion, and then they've actually built onto this beer. So they also have a Super Vliet.
Oh, right, yes.
Which is it's technically an imperial Pilsner, which is a new thing coming up. I don't know how familiar. I think it's like a 7% Pilsner. And then they also did one for Pride that was a variation on it.
Oh, yeah.
And they've done basically a dry hop version, and then they've also done a 10-degree Plato Czech Pilsner. It's not a Vliet, but it's in that same Pilsner family, obviously. So they've definitely hit that market with the success of the Vliet and kind of just launched with it.
Mm. Anybody else have any further thoughts on this beer?
I drink this one way too quick every time I have it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
because
I know
it's,
mine.
I've already emptied like half of my can back into it because it just goes
Yeah.
down so fast. This is, for me, this is one of the beers when I'm trying to convert my non-craft beer converted friends over to the better side, as I like to say. This is one of the ones that I often will start with for them,
Oh.
because it is a beer that you can find in bodegas in the city. It's a really good beer. It's a great entry point, and it shows you what a really well-crafted, kind of lighter in body, crisper beer can be. That's just far more interesting than something that feels a little bit more mass-produced. So this for me is like it's one of my conversion beers out there, you know?
oh yeah.
It's a good tool to have in your conversion belt. I'll tell you what.
Mhm. Praise it.
Yeah.
Someone was asking how this beer warms. I'm no clue. I'll be honest. I think I've never had it sit around long enough to tell you
Nope.
how it feels when it warms up. It just goes right down real fast.
Yeah, I think I would have the same issue. I'm sure Wonderful Flavors comes up.
Mhm.
Brian in the chat, first
Yeah.
of all, shout out, great name. Is
Thank you.
asking question for the group roundtable discussion
Oh.
here. What are your conversion beers? We'll start with Jonathan, our guest
Yeah.
tonight.
So
only-
like
it's only
to convert people, or like the beer that I had to be converted?
Ooh, that's
Both.
Ooh,
I'll go both. I'll go both ways.
that's
Okay.
so okay.
So for me, so I grew up in the Midwest, so we didn't have a lot of options. It's kind of a trend for a lot of CBT folk.
That is very true, actually.
But so a lot of times I will pick something that I know that they know the name of. So a lot of like Sam Adams, I know, you know, they're big and you can get them pretty much anywhere. That's a really good one. But something like the Vliet or like a good craft Pilsner or light lager. I will also do any type of Vienna lager as well, if I can get a craft version of that. Just easy drinking. For myself, there were two main beers that converted me because of being in the Midwest.
Mhm.
Flat Tire,
Yep.
when it was independent. So that was a while ago, from New Belgium. And who, I forget the name of the brewery, but it's the Raging Bitch.
Oh, that one.
I saw you dancing around that word. The
Yeah,
brewery
yeah.
is called Flying Dog out of Frederick.
Yeah, Flying Dog.
Maryland.
Yes. I saw the logo and I was like, I know the logo. I always forget that's Flying Dog.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
we're a family podcast, so but you know.
Yeah, well, we'll bleep that later.
Yeah, sorry for Andy. Yeah, Raging Bitch, which is a Belgian style IPA.
Yes.
An IPA
which
that
is-
ferment with a Belgian yeast.
See, that's so interesting to me because when it over on the podcast that I occasionally spend time on, the Beer Avengers podcast, we do ask people to tell us their, and I'm not going to trigger it if I say it here, so I feel safe, origin story. And Fat Tire comes up all the time.
Mhm.
It really seems to be a beer that a lot of people sort of convert over to craft beer in drinking. I don't know if you find that too, Brian.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. It's New Belgium worked very hard to get that beer out there. It is an approachable style. Much like Jonathan, I would say my conversion beers are Vienna lagers. It's a good thing, especially here in Pittsburgh. People are so familiar with Yingling, and it's like, hey, this is just better. This is like way better Yingling. Try this out. But now you want to know what it is?
What is it?
It's fucking fruited sours, man. It's like, hey, you don't like
Yeah.
beer,
Really?
you don't like the taste
Yeah.
of beer. Here, try something that tastes nothing like the beers that you're familiar with. And I think what's nice about that, like one part of that is a joke, but another part of that is like, hey, look, beer isn't just lager and the brown ales and stouts and IPAs that you're familiar with. Beer is so versatile and it can take on these wonderful flavors from whatever ingredients we add into it. So you like juice, you'll like this beer.
There you go.
And then conversion beers for me, I've said this probably I don't know how many times on the podcast, but number one Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Actually,
yeah.
first, sorry, number one was Guinness.
Yeah.
Then that kind of transitioned to me closer to the good stuff. And then my dad eventually started buying Sierra Nevada Pale Ales. And I, as a young man that couldn't buy beer myself,
Of course,
started taking
Yeah.
those Sierra Nevada Pale Ales. So
that's how that
Yeah.
works. I'm loving the chat is chiming in. We got someone saying that the Anchor Christmas Ale was a big one for me, and of course, R.I.P.
rest in peace, Anchor.
Yes, rest in peace, Anchor. Great Lakes, Dortmunder fruited
Good
sours,
one.
of course.
Ooh.
Boulevard Wheat, a classic. Boulevard. How are we not talking about Boulevard Wheat? Yeah, Sam Adams Oktoberfest, and Sierra Nevada Pale Ale being like the thing that opens everyone's eyes. Yeah.
Ethan, how about you? What are your what are yours?
I mean, so in terms of like what I will give people, the very first beer that I ever had that was a craft beer based on my list was from Abita. I don't remember specifically what it was, but that was it. But
that
I
Purple
definitely,
Haze?
yeah, I think it was probably the Purple Haze. But that was many moons ago when I discovered that beer was more than the swill that I had been force fed in the Midwest growing up, unfortunately. But for me today, the like one of the things I noticed, and it's interesting that you say fruited sours are the way to go, but it in the like touring, and sometimes when you're giving a tour, and I'm sure Jonathan knows this, you get that person who's like been dragged along to the beer tour to just be there because someone else is making them be there. We've all seen this person, right? Our buddies over at Five Boroughs Brewing Company make a goza, which for many people it's a very just classic kind of clean goza. It's a little bit sour, a little bit salty. And the number of people who were like, I'm not really into beer, and you give them the goza and they're like, okay, I get it. That one was a conversion point. But the other one that is always the winner is their Five Boroughs, and it's one of my favorite beers of all times, Tiny Juicy IPA.
Yeah.
Which is a session style double dry hopped pale ale trending towards a hazy IPA. And it is I feel like, Jonathan, it's like it's water. You just drink it down and it just goes all the way. Yeah.
And it is award winning. I just have to throw that out there to our friends.
Absolutely. Yes.
For the World Beer Cup.
Mhm.
Not just award winning, but the World Beer Cup.
It's a real good beer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a good answer. Like low ABV,
Mm.
heavily dry hopped
Mhm.
IPA. That's a good way to go. It's so funny. We're talking about these conversion beers. Like, hey, you got to try these styles, but we're talking to an audience of people that are like, yeah, we know. Move on.
Well, yeah, I agree. But there's something nostalgic, right? Because we all were that person.
There is.
We all were that person who was
Yeah.
like, Coors, whatever. Oh my gosh, Abita. Oh my gosh, Liney's. Oh my gosh, Sam Adams. The first time some of us had Sam Adams, I'm sure, was like a revelation that beer could taste like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. And now we just all go crazy with our local breweries, including the many that are sprouting up here in the better borough, Brooklyn.
Yeah, yes, lots of them in the better borough, and that's something that City Brew Tours took notice of back in 2018. Made the decision to open our location up there and focus on both Queens and, of course, the Brooklyn neighborhood. And Jonathan was actually one of the first hires, as Ethan was as well. So, Jonathan, you want to tell us about your current position with City Brew Tours, as well as your history leading tours in the Five Boroughs?
Yeah. So currently I am the lead tour guide for New York, not just Brooklyn. I do Queens as well. So we do have to throw that out there. So yeah, I mean, I lead the tours, all of them, walking, private. Sometimes we'll get in a charter bus. Some other times, most of the time, take the train and a little foot traffic. But I've been doing it it's hard to believe that it's been over 5 years because it just kind of passed. And there's the hyphen year of COVID in there.
The hyphen year.
Yeah, I just call 2020 to 2022 is just that, like 2021 is just a hyphen. So yeah. So from the beginning, started doing driving and leading tours, and I've seen it all from having the van, which I know has been mentioned on the cast before, and then going from having the van to just walking, seen the full transition, switch up of affiliates through pre and post COVID, and just seeing a lot of our friendships like just blossoming and still continuing with a lot of the great breweries, especially in Brooklyn. So I mean, having over a decade of experience as a tour guide and loving beer, it just is a natural fit. So that's like the Cliff Notes version. But another thing that I always like to tell people is also the wealth of breweries in Brooklyn. I know that, there's not a lot, like if you were to take the 550 plus that are in the state, in the New York metro area, there's only 40 plus. But out of the 41 that are part of the New York Brewers Guild, 24 of those are in Brooklyn alone. So 60% of the New York Brewers Guild breweries are in Brooklyn. So yeah, we got the goods.
Yeah.
We got the goods.
Heck yeah.
Well, I want to ask, because we were part of this back when we had vans, and we realized that was not an ideal situation for New York, because driving in the 5 boroughs is an adventure. Let's put it that way. Do you have any particularly fun van memories that you can share of attempting of like being stuck in traffic or things like that?
How appropriate do I want to get? So I mean, probably the most memorable was a group. It was a bachelor party. Let's just say bachelor parties get a little crazy. They just do. We were driving down, and somebody couldn't wait any longer to get to the restroom. And so they proceeded to try to climb out of the van.
Oh, no.
Obviously we say no hands and feet inside the vehicle at all time. Luckily we made it in plenty of time. That's probably the biggest. The other is a little known fact where 5 Boroughs Brewing is located is in an entirely industrial area. So there's a few like meat processing areas nearby. So there was one time we were driving, and we had the van, so only the people in the front seats could see as the halal meat processing plant opened their van that was full of goat and lamb carcasses, and then started to scream of seeing these animals. And then everyone in the back is like, what do you see? I'm like, nothing. We're just going to turn right here and go to the brewery. So that was like Brooklyn. That is Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So you just have, it is what it is.
And that's why you walk in New York City, because
that's why you walk.
That's why you walk. That is the reason that we walk. Because with all that, once you're on the street, if you want to take a hard right turn, you just take that hard right turn, and you're not just sitting there in traffic hoping.
Or while you're walking, you walk the whole group up to the back of the van. You're like, hey, you guys ever seen a goat carcass before?
See, it's an educational experience. It's what we do.
It is what we do.
Oh dear. We're starting to break Brian. It's bad news here.
You're starting to get regular everyday Brian coming into the podcast, because that's my first thought is, if you're walking by, like, at least you could take it's not only the person in the front that sees it. Maybe there's somebody that's sitting in the back that's like, never seen. I love gyro meat.
Exactly.
It's about inclusion. That's what we're all about here.
Equal opportunities.
Exactly.
Yeah. Showcase all the cultures of Brooklyn. It's great.
Yeah. The goat will make no more goat cheese. Very true. These are accurate facts. Oh boy. Oh. Yeah, I gotta say, being a tour guide in New York City is totally an adventure, because New York City is a bustling, wonderful city, but everything happens here, and so you do get a little bit of a taste of anything anytime you travel around the 5 boroughs, especially in Brooklyn, I think.
Yeah, and when we do the walking tours, we go through about 3 different neighborhoods altogether. So you see a good wide range of things.
Yeah.
Well,
and I feel like it's kind of a cool combo, right? Because you get some more residential areas over by Gowanus, but then you get to see some slightly more industrial areas. And then sometimes you guys even go to places that are a little bit more like converted into social spaces, kind of like So like some buildings that maybe were used for military barracks, but
Yep.
are now like more places where there are stores and shops and like places where people gather, which is kind of a different view of how people are starting to use space in the borough. Now that things are changing and people are figuring out different ways to use space.
Yeah, no, and fully agree. Industry City is one of the top
That's what it's called.
like destination places. As somebody that has gone there for a whole day of shopping and drinking,
Mhm.
you do the shopping before the drinking, just so you know. That's way smarter. But you can spend an entire day there. They do a lot of live events, concerts, barbecue fest. Obviously, the New York Brewers Guild opening bash is there pretty
That's
much
great.
every year now, because it's heated as
Yes.
opposed to the Navy Yard,
not.
but which is not. It's a big warehouse. So there's always something happening there, and with 3 breweries literally next door to each other, plus 2 distilleries, plus ginger liqueur. I
Oh,
mean, it's a good time. It is about a block from the train, so you don't want to like go too hard, but definitely you can still have a good time.
yeah, but they do have lovely bathrooms there, which I will note. So you can prep yourself before you go. Someone is asking, and it's probably good to clarify. We New Yorkers, we walk a lot. About how many miles are you walking on one of these tours?
That's a very good question. So we're walking no more. Let me see. It's 0.6 and so like a mile and a half altogether. But we break
Not
it up.
bad.
So we break it up. Don't worry. Like we're not doing a 5K from brewery to brewery. We're doing about a half of a mile at a time. To break that up in New York terms, we walk about 2 city blocks, or about 4 regular blocks for our suburban folk. So 4 to 6 normal blocks. So that's fine. It's good. Good
Which-
little cardio to get you in between each brewery.
It brings you back, makes you ready for the next stop. I feel like that's a good amount. Like we were talking about crawls on our first one. That feels like appropriate crawl pacing to me, right? You don't want to go like 8 blocks.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh boy, what are we gonna do here? But like a couple blocks between, you're all good
Yeah.
to go.
Well, and if you were to map them out, it would seem very far, but we do take the train. So we do take the group on the train. We go a little bit further than you could on a normal walking. Haven't lost anyone yet. I'm going to knock on wood on that. And I always say yet on every tour because there's always a chance. I just did a tour with 25 people and we didn't lose anybody. So,
I think my tour days with City Brew Tours are over. I haven't done a tour in quite some time. I did probably over 200 of them.
Whoa!
And I never left someone at a brewery, and I always made that same joke, like, hey guys, I'm gonna do counts of everybody, just I'm gonna give you a heads up when we're getting ready to leave. I haven't left anybody at a brewery yet, so let's not make this the tour that we do it. So
but
I
have
use
you
the same
added
joke.
anybody? Have you added anybody to your van?
No,
I have.
What, Jonathan?
I was like, wait. I was like, no. This is too many people. You get out.
I have added somebody. Our
It
friend
comes out.
our friend Isaac jumped on one of my tours one time. It was like, hey, can I catch a ride from this brewery to this brewery? And I was like, sure, man.
Oh gosh.
I think it's as good as time to get into our second beer.
I was gonna say I'm empty, so let's do this thing.
Oh, I got to be empty too then.
Okay. Go do your thing. Chug. That's how we do this, right?
Yeah, little easy chugs. I
Exactly.
professionally drink milk pours,
That's true.
so I'm good to go.
All right, it is time for a logical conclusion. Yes.
Yeah, as mentioned before, a New England style IPA that was done with Citra Mosaic and Simcoe hops, kind of the holy trinity of juicy hazy IPAs. Brewed with German Pilsner malt, German malted wheat, and American flaked wheat, coming in at 7% ABV. Oh,
Ooh.
That aroma is just exactly what you expect.
I know,
What you want from a New England IPA.
when you list all those hops and you sniff it, you're
Mm.
like, yep, correct, check, check, and check. We understood the assignment and we have accomplished it well. Mm.
And it looks like juice. So
It
you know
does.
it's there.
Yeah, it's right there. It's so pretty. Oh, and you've got that lovely that's one of the OG Five Boroughs Brewing
This
Company.
is, yeah, this is one of the OG Five Boroughs Brewing. They don't make this glass anymore.
Mhm.
That is a nice glass. That is a nice glass.
Yeah. Yeah, it does give a really fruity nose, like incredibly fruity, but then it gives you a little bit more of that haze, a little bit more of that bite on it for me. But this is a beer that I have had friends who have been drinking for a little while, once they have converted, let's say that, and then decide that IPAs might be the way to go. This is one that they immediately grab onto, because I find this to be a really accessible IPA, as well as a hazy IPA, as well as something that's got a little bit more of the alcohol, so it feels like you're stepping it up a bit, you know.
Yeah, good 7%. Get your bang for the buck.
Mhm.
That bite at the end, everybody in the
I know.
chat is talking about it, but
No, it's great.
you get that sweetness, that the hop juiciness, and
Yep.
then that bite kind of like tames it back and pushes it
Mhm.
back. It's just
Yep.
a really good example of how this style can be done so well and have all those juicy and fruity components that people love without being cloying or
Mhm.
too sweet.
Mhm.
Those that means the same thing. Someone else talk.
Well, I think this is one of those journey beers, right, where it starts in one way and it kind of ends in another, and I think that's why it's a journey. It's a journey person's beer.
That's a good phrase.
Yeah, it is a beer that takes you on a journey. It is full experiential, and honestly, it's a reason why it's become one of their cores. Like, this
Yeah.
is a beer that I feel like I see, because to the surprise of no one, Jonathan and I are friends outside of this. I hope you know. I know, shocking, right? And so we have had beers together in multiple locations, and sometimes when we this is one of the beers that I will regularly see on tap if you go to a beer bar in New York, because it's just sort of one of those things that you're like, oh, what am I looking for tonight? I don't really know. You know what? I'll do a logical conclusion. It's just one of those ones that you can go to because you know it's going to be good and it's going to be reliable, and it's one of the things that, just like the Vliet, Threes has kind of made their name on, right?
Yeah.
So, good choice. I agree. Both choices tonight were excellent, and great representations of what Threes is putting out into the world right now.
Oh, for sure.
Now, if I can ask a question of Jonathan, because
Of course.
Here's the thing. Jonathan does something that I find to be very unique in the Five Boroughs of New York, because if you don't necessarily know, we have very small apartments.
Yes.
We have tight living spaces, and yet Jonathan is my go-to home brewer source here.
Yes.
So, and I've been to your apartment. It is not large. Okay,
No.
it is a lovely apartment, but it is not large.
Blowing up his spot. Hey man, you
Yeah.
got a tiny spot.
Yeah,
I do.
exactly.
No, that is New York. That is Brooklyn.
Right.
You go for either space, or you go for amenities, like close amenities, or you
Proximity to the subway.
Proximity to the subway. And that's pretty much, or like price as well. Like, so price, amenities, subway, or size. You don't get all three. You don't get all three. You got to choose. So I get good proximity to the subway, and I'm in an area that's a good price. So which means I don't have a lot of space. But I do homebrew. It was definitely came out of having way too much time on my hand during COVID. And I'm like, I don't want to go places, but I want beer. So the next option is I like to cook. So brewing is like cooking, right? Do not approach brewing that way, by the way. But if you like flavors of different foods, it's great. So yes, I do brew in my 1-bedroom, 500 square foot apartment. To the, I'll not disappointment, but I let my wife lets it happen. Let's just say that she lets it happen. But yes, I will brew about 2.5 gallons at a time. So that's good stock pot. But there have been times I've been a little, let's say, itchy to brew, and I have brewed 5 gallons at a time. So I'll have a fermenter under the kitchen table, a fermenter in the closet. I'll have bottles carbonating on shelves in my kitchen and under some other shelves. Like I basically, half of my apartment is just full of fermenting beer, which smells okay in a brewery. It smells good in a brewery. Not so much the smell you want to come home to of nice fermenting grain, but it is what it is. So luckily I have a very lovely wife that lets me do that. But yeah, it's about taking advantage. Also, you have to be really aware of the weather. So if you live in New York, most apartments, especially older ones like mine, you do not get to control the heat in the winter.
That's very true. That's very true.
The radiators just come on whenever they decide to. And in the summer, when you live on a higher floor, then you also, AC only helps so much. So I do not get to control my fermentation temperatures. It basically chooses it for me. So it's just kind of like, all right, what's the weather going to be this week or next week or this month? And finding beers that can actually ferment properly. That requires a lot of Kvik styles, especially in the summer, which are fantastic. And kind of doing spins on traditional styles with Kvik yeast. So kind of playing with either making it a Norwegian IPA, which is not really a thing, but a Kvik IPA or Kvik blonde ale, pale ale, and kind of just going, again, utilizing what you can with the restrictions.
It sounds like you're the head brewer and your landlord is the cellar person.
Yeah, that sounds exactly right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's an apt metaphor for the way I think we brew in the 5 boroughs if you're brewing at home.
Yeah, more so my super, but yeah.
Well, I've had some of Jonathan's beers, and I will say someone is mentioning it does sound like saisons are the way to go. Jonathan does make a mean saison.
Yeah. I've made Belgians work really well. I've had very good luck with Belgians.
Set it and forget it.
Sometimes. Not too far. Not too far.
Are you do you go to like a local homebrew store, or are you sourcing ingredients online?
No, I have there's a store that's in we'll do a shout out to Bitter and Esther's.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Over
They're
to
For sure.
in Prospect Heights. They have, not only do they have pretty much any of the ingredients that you need and you can order online to pick up, or they deliver as well, which is great. But they also, in addition to your classic German, Czech, whatever you want, they also do have New York hops. So you can get actual New York State hops that are, every once in a while they'll have the experimental ones, which are a lot of fun. So obviously it is they're experimental. So they're just really fun flavors. They did a New York Excelsior that I did use on one of them, and it was super peppery, which I loved in a hop. So it had a little bit of a citrus, but a really strong peppery flavor, which is really cool.
That's so cool. For folks that don't know, I think most people know that, the hops in the modern brewing industry, especially, American grown hops, they're coming from the Pacific Northwest. You're getting them from either Washington, Oregon, or Idaho. That's 90%, 95% of what's used in commercial brewing in the United States. However, before Prohibition, and everything kind of went to shit right around there. New York was one of the biggest producers of hops.
Yep.
I maybe even at one time the biggest producer.
Mhm.
So there is lineage in that soil there. There is history in that soil and in that state. And the fact that your local homebrew shop has New York grown estate hops, essentially. I don't know if I'm using that term right. It's very cool either way. I have a very long-standing homebrew store that I visit whenever I'm brewing, and they don't sell PA made hops.
Well, I feel like New York has really put some effort into trying to bring back some of that. I mean, we had the New York State Farm Brewers, our farm bill, which started to allow, basically gave tax advantages to open breweries and to make New York State product. I can't remember, Jonathan, do you remember when it gets to like when it sort of maxes out at 90%?
So was originally supposed to be 2024.
Right,
I
okay.
believe there was an extension put in place to 2026. Do not hold me to that. I am putting an asterisk on that just in case
Fair.
it is still 2024. But I believe that it within the next 3 years, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So they were supposed to switch to 90% earlier. So
Right.
they was already supposed to be there, but they stayed at 60% because of COVID. So because of the pandemic, they extended it, of knowing that it was going to be harder for some of the farm brewers to get access and grow crops. There's going to be some difficulty there. So they did extend the 60%. It is still currently at 60% of, let me preface, of your malt and hop bill. 60%. Obviously, water is going to be New York State because you're in New York. Yeast is that's the one variable that they're not really paying too close attention to, and then additional adjuncts is also okay. So that's why your hop and malt bill need to be 60 and then eventually 90% New York State. But if you can do all ingredients, which several of our lovely in most of our farm breweries, they're already at 90 almost, and most of them are at 100% already.
Shout out to Suarez, shout out to Drowned Lands.
Strong Rope, Big Alice.
Yeah. Some of those iconic, some of the really iconic New York breweries that are continuing to do really cool things as well, are really taking advantage of that, which is cool.
Oh yeah. There's most beers at Strong Rope, will say are at 100%.
Oh, wow.
There was one recently that was at 90% because their blackberries were out of state, because there were no blackberries that were in season right now.
Come on. Jason,
but it's all right. It's all right. It was a fantastic blackberry sour,
sure
though.
And I will trust Jason till the end of the world to give me a good beer. No question.
I feel like it was from Jersey, so it's fine. It's the sixth borough. The sixth borough. It's fine.
Exactly. And yeah, someone saying love Big Alice. Big ups to Big Alice. Big love.
Big Alice rules.
I will give you a little inside scoop to Big Alice.
Oh my, breaking here on this little podcast.
I know. I don't know if you guys are. So they opened up their new brewing facility upstate near the Finger Lakes, that they can be, and they opened this up about a little over a year ago. And they did it so that they could be closer to the ingredients. Sure. So they could be closer to the malts and the hops. Smart. They are now, I just spoke with Kyle a couple weeks ago. They are also starting, they have about 2 acres of land. They are going to start growing their own produce. So they are growing their own sweet potatoes here probably about now. They have their own apple trees that they're going to start using, and they just are starting to grow their own cherries as well. So they also are putting multiple raised beds so they can grow their own jalapenos. So they can continue the styles that they're really known for: their sweet potato farmhouse ale, their jalapeno rye, their cherry quad. And the apple one, we don't know what's going to happen yet. But
Yeah, well, I smell ciders in their future. I gotta say, and Big Alice started as communities. They started basically working with small farms in New York. So like that's always been part of their ethos, which is very cool.
yeah, and they still do. That is still very much part of them, of working with small farms, local farms, whether that's in Queens, Brooklyn, or up near the Finger Lakes. But if they can grow sweet potatoes, put in their beer, why not?
Why not? I
Do
trust
it.
them to do a good job with that.
Yeah.
So Jonathan,
Yes.
what is one thing that you wish people knew about Brooklyn when they thought of the better borough? What is one thing that you wish people knew about this neighborhood collection of neighborhoods?
The first is I wish they knew how big it was. Because
biggest borough.
Biggest borough. They're like,
borough.
oh yeah, I'm just gonna go from 5 boroughs over to Greenpoint Brewery. I'm like, well, you're not just going to do that. That's gonna take you about an hour and a half, but sure, go ahead. So size is like the big one of it's big. It's really big. The other, I mean, I think it just goes back to like what I said about like Brooklyn is just the diversity of the neighborhoods, the cuisines, the beer. I mean, again, they have 60% of the New York Brewers Guild breweries. So they have some pretty good beer in areas that you may not have heard of. So Greenpoint, obviously people know Williamsburg, are starting to know Gowanus because of Strong Rope, Threes, Wild East, Finback. People know Other Half, which is just a little jaunt away. But Greenpoint has great breweries, Bushwick, Bed-Stuy, also great history of having breweries there in the early 1900s. So it's just kind of a resurgence of a lot of that. Also, a lot of breweries in Brooklyn as well are, I think, like the bottle shops are also a big part of it, but also there's a lot of, whether you want to call them gypsy or contract breweries, or basically breweries that don't have tap rooms, that brew in other facilities. I know of at least 3 or 4 off the top of my head. And so those are ones that you have to go to local spots to get to. So I think that's probably, sorry, that was really long, like well-rounded answer. But yeah, that's my answer. In conclusion, while Brian takes a sip, food, diversity, lesser known neighborhoods, and the contract breweries.
And we're big.
We're big.
We're big. We're kind of a big deal. People know us.
We're really big. As Newsies said in the 1990s, Brooklyn, the 4th largest city in the world.
Taking it back. I like it.
That's the 4th largest city in the world. Come and read about it.
There it is.
I'm sure I just woke my daughter up with that stupid newsy.
I'm sorry. Voice. I'm sorry.
No, there's no one to blame but me. And that's my life story.
Oh dear.
What a show. Jonathan, thank you so much. Is there anything you want to plug before we kind of wrap up shop here?
I mean, obviously drink local. Head to all of the breweries in Brooklyn. Head to all 24 Brooklyn breweries.
Yeah, it's not that many
in one day.
You could do it if you try.
2 days. 2 days. 2 days.
Yeah, you could do it in one if you try hard enough.
Also, City Brew Tours, New York.
Yep.
Come on a tour. I will take you to multiple breweries and talk your ear off for 3 to 4 hours.
And you want to, because Jonathan is a damn good tour guide.
This dude knows a thing or two about beer. Yeah.
A couple things. That's all I got to plug.
Great. Phenomenal. Thank you both so much for tonight. And thanks to everybody at home. Thanks to our Beer Club subscribers. And thanks to I have speed run both of these beers tonight, and it is catching up on me because I've been ate since like
They've done a
4 o'clock.
great job. Three's Brewery continues to be excellent, and they have proven themselves tonight. There you go. Chug it down. Yes. Threes. We had two threes.
2 empty glasses.
There you go. It's a visual joke. 2 threes.
Yes, yes.
2 threes beers tonight. That's what we do.
Yes, and thank you so much to Threes Brewing for not only supplying beers for this episode, but for our beer club subscribers. If you want to follow along with them on Instagram, you can find them at Threes Brewing. Again, thank you so much to Threes for supplying beers for our beer club. If you're interested in joining the beer club, exploring subscription options, head over to shop.citybrewtours.com. You can see the options that we have there, and sign up, help support the show, and you'll get something out of it. You'll get great beers like these sent to you on a monthly basis. You'll get wonderful perks that only come with a beer club that is put on by the oldest brewery tour company in North America, staying strong since 2008. And head over to citybrewtours.com to check out our tour options, available in over 20 cities now. That's a big number. There were 9 of them when I joined the company. Yeah,
Just saying, New York City's. You should definitely do New York City. You should definitely.
it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid.
It's a good one.
It's a 2 for 1 because we do Queens and Brooklyn.
You can do it twice, and it's a different thing.
And it's different from most of the tourist stuff you're going to be doing, which I'm imagining is in Manhattan. You go over to the better boroughs.
The better boroughs.
Exactly.
There you go. And I'll put an S on that just to confirm.
Yeah, solidarity across the river.
Yes.
Don't ask me which river it is.
It's the east one, but we'll forgive you for that. You got a bunch of rivers in Pittsburgh. I know it's hard to keep track. It's fine.
Yeah. Next week, please come back and join us. We are closing out the Brooklyn month, with, let's just be honest, the granddaddy of them all.
Oh, yeah.
The brewery that set it all up
Yes.
in the modern craft beer scene.
Ugh.
Brooklyn Brewery.
Cheers to them.
Cheers. I don't have any beer to cheers with, that, as we've already discussed. But until next week, stay safe, be kind, and of course, support local breweries, everybody. Cheers. Have a good night. Woo.